Hi guys, good afternoon from DCS Plus headquarters in Bucharest. Thank you so much for attending this workshop. We know that there will be 4 hours, very interesting from the technical point of view. And I believe that we can have a very interactive session today. My name is Sibel Abdullah. I'm product marketing from DCS Plus team. And during today, we will be discussing Y-Trip. I'm here with Ionuț Bacheș, who is our senior software architect. More exactly, Ionuț has joined 6 years ago DCS Plus team with a very clear scope in his mind to make a great product in the travel industry in order to create the best travel platforms and the scalable ones. And also I'm with Cătălin Morov. He's our lead software developer. He has joined 6 years ago our Trip team, and he has been dealing with a lot of B2C projects during those years. Just to have a little overview about our today's agenda, we will be discussing about a product market perspective. Then we will have a short session from Ionuț Bacheș's side, our software architect, on Y-Trip. How is the structure of our product, the architecture, and how scalable is our products from this point of view. Of course, then we will have a Q&A session, and I believe that each one of you have some questions on that topic. You can feel free to share your questions in the chat area. Both Ionuț and Cătălin will try to respond all your questions. And then we will go further on the practical side of our workshop, and it will be a live coding section. For the live technical demonstration, we have chosen to implement a flight service, and in the first part we will have the coding part for the search process of a flight. Afterwards, we will have the second part with the listing of a flight service. And of course, a Q&A session. I encourage you to write the questions you have in this chat. And in the same time, we will try to keep an eye on what are your questions and if you have some suggestions or interest in what you want to see. And actually, we have prepared for today a B2C project website example. And the live coding will be done in this manner. But if you have different things to ask, how the guys are coding something or how they need to make different setups, please feel free to write them. And as far as the workshop will go further, we will try to respond all of these questions. Just to give you a bit of trip brief, actually 6 years ago, we have started to create this great product, as we are aware of it. DCS Plus as a technology company, it's a 17-year experienced company in the travel technology field. Our first product was the travel ERP. Back then we had the booking engine. Afterwards, we had a product specially designed for tour operators. And as the time flew away, we have seen that the digital part and the need and the challenges that were raised from the market regarding the websites, the OTA or different travel apps further on. We have started to work on Trip, and after 6 years of implementation, we believe that Now, we like to say that any trip customer can create whatever they want, even if we are referring to a straightforward OTA, or we are referring to a travel mobile app or any other travel platform. Then you can achieve this type of project, no matter of the scope of this project. Why Trip? Just to give you some examples. In the further minutes, Ionuț will speak about the architecture of Trip, but the product comes with some key elements for the success of an online project. One of them, it would be the faster time to market, because the Trip engine and the collection of the tools that is offered by this technology, it makes things much more easier from the development point of view, because there are already written collections of tools. So instead of starting to write from scratch the code for the project, you just need to combine different parts, different elements, different snippets from the ones available in Trip. And the time to market it will definitely lower. Also from the custom part of a B2C project, the Trip product gives the flexibility to any type of development team to create whatever projects they want. So from the front end point of view, there are no limitations on our engine. Another important aspect for the success of a B2C product is the complexity, because yes, we all are aware that the travel sector is somehow a complex one, because we know that we are referring to a very large distribution chain, and in the end, the user that needs to book flight service from your website, actually behind there are a lot of elements, and that are a lot of third parties that needs to be involved. And the writing can be challenging, because in the end your user needs to have a very simple process in a couple of minutes of booking a certain travel service. And somehow in this 7 years, we have tried to reduce the complexity of the travel industry, from providing APIs for hotels, flight, or any other different travel service. So in the end, any technical team doesn't need to worry about the hassle of what happens further on the flow, and more exactly to keen on what happens in the front end side and how the website should be structured and designed. From this point of view, these are the main things that are recommending Trip. Also the scalability part, because once you go live with a certain project, you also need to think about what happens next, because we all know that a project, it doesn't get stuck in the first part, and you need to have a very scalable, flexible technology that could help you play in the future, because you need to have different goals and different plans from the business perspective, from the marketing perspective. And all these future plans needs to be somehow supported by the technology, because in the end, the technology represents the support for what happens next on your website, on the conversion rates, and so on. This is actually a short brief on why we have created this product like this, from the business perspective, but also from the technical point of view. And in the upcoming minutes, my colleague Ionuț, the Trip software architect, will have a short brief on how we have managed to achieve the current version of Trip, what is the architecture of our product, and some recommendation from the development side. Okay, 1 second to stop sharing my screen because I will let Ionuț to start his magic part right now.
Hello everyone. Thank you for attending to this webinar, to this meeting. I'm the software architect of the Trip product, and I will go further explaining a little bit the concept and the architecture behind the Trip and why we decided to go this way. First of all, with the Trip, the backend is based on microservices which publish REST APIs. So first, at the beginning, we wanted to only publish REST APIs so the developers can play with them. But taking into consideration the complexity of the travel industry and the complexity of the booking flow on the online website, we decided to go further and try to ease those stepstones. So we have created our CMS that is not really a CMS. It's more like a website builder, where you can when you can create and use and share your concepts with others and play around with your ideas about the online travel website. So the concept we took is to allow user to register in a sandbox, in a Trip sandbox, and then to create projects. The project can be created based on the skeleton or from the start. Let's go into one project to see how the CMS look like. Okay, so our CMS is composed from two components: the pages and the snippets. The main or the core of the CMS are the snippets. What are the snippets and what are the pages? In our documentation, we try to describe exactly how the snippets work. The snippet is for the programmers, I suppose the snippet is pretty common and pretty familiar with. But for others, the snippet is just a chunk of a portion of code that can be reusable and usually is responsible for one thing. That's why we decided to go this way, because we see snippets like pieces of puzzles. So we want to provide together with you, with the community, the pieces of a big nice puzzle. The snippets, as you already know, in the background, are leveraging the interaction with the front end, the HTML part, the CSS part, with our REST APIs. So when we want to create a portion of search form, for example, most likely there is already a snippet there, or you can create a snippet that can be reused in other projects. So snippets are simple tools that can be reused and used in your project. Regarding the snippet, we want to emphasize on the single responsibility principle. Regarding sorry about that. So we want to emphasize the single responsibility principle, which states that one thing must do has one scope. So the architecture behind the trip is based on three-tier architecture. That is the HTML part, the presentation layer, the application layer, which can be written in any type of language, and the database layer, which represents the persistence of the information that are gathered from the application layer. So basically, a snippet is composed, has some properties, which is the name, representing the name of the snippet. We suggest that the name should be and must be as descriptive as it can. The category of the snippet, which offers you the possibility to categorize the snippets and to be easy to find when you search for a snippet. Also, the template, because the snippets are composed, as you can see. For example, let's take a hotel lead or a search form. It's composed based on a template, a Twig template, which allows the developer to write Twig syntax. A JavaScript part, which represents the functionality of that template, and the CSS part, which is the style part for that snippet. Now, the template part, as I said, is based on the Twig template render. You can use, as you already know, the Twig supports variables and is render language. And the variables are, we provide two kinds of variables. So we have a predefined variables that are global variables, let's say, that can access different configuration of the application, like endpoints, name of the application, paths for admin, for the upload folder, the domain, and so on. And the dynamic variables, which can which has different sources. One source can be the data source, an endpoint from the trip, or an external endpoint, and this will be visible in the fourth screen in our CMS. So the other source that can be the other parameters can be parent parameters, which means that you can nest snippets one into another, and you can go deeper as you want. This is useful when you want to reuse the snippets in some context, like you want to add the search form in the listing, let's say. So maybe you want to add the snippet of the search form inside the snippet of a list. Okay, also because we can have different layers of the snippets, you must know how the snippets work and what are the priority of the data of the parameters that are passed to a snippet. So as I said, the snippets parameter can be provided from an external or internal API endpoint, from the parent passing variables from snippet to snippet, or another kind of variables that are available into snippets in Pig and in JavaScript are query parameters from the query string of the URI of the page. Now, regarding the nesting snippets and the layering technique, as we call it, is that you can have access to these layers in the console, and you can see how the snippets are rendered, because each snippet is rendered in a specific order. So the first level of the first layer of the snippets are rendered first, and the second layer, third layer. You can, as I said, you can go as deep as you want. The problem with this nesting is that if you have too many nesting levels, you can the user experience may be affected, because as I said, layers are rendering in the order that are provided. So you can debug it if you call the underline snippet in your console, developer tools console. You can see the layer inside each snippet. So in this example, the hotel prices is the name of the snippet that has a data source from our API, and it has the level 3, a layer 3, which means is inside on a snippet that is inside of another snippet. The parameters that are provided to this snippet are displayed also here. The global parameters, as I said, the page, the current page, the pages that are available in the entire website, and the data source params, which in this case, it will be the hotel ID with the value 16. Also, another important thing regarding the snippet is that the type of the snippet, because in some context the snippet can be static, which means the snippet will be pre-rendered already in the web page, in your page. So this cannot be used with dynamic variables. So an example of the static snippet will be creating a CSS file, yeah, with only CSS, or maybe some contact details, or I don't know, something that doesn't change so often, so it's not dynamically sourced. The other type of snippet is the dynamic snippet, which in most cases they are using dynamic variables from an external data source. Let me show you one kind of snippet which has a variable data source. Okay, so we have a snippet which is a dynamic snippet with a data source from our event manager module. It will provide all the events based on an entity ID. So you can find all this description in the usability of the CMS, accessing the documentation and going to the snippet. We tried together with my colleagues to explain pretty much how they work and how to be used. And for the REST APIs, as we don't force you to use our CMS, and if you have already a platform that you use, you can use our REST API, which already has the documentation, and you can call directly our API. Yeah, that's about the theoretical part and the presentation of the CMS. One short thing that I want to show the developers is that the CMS we try to improve the user experience of our CMS, and we add and leave some Easter eggs. And the one is to the configuration of the CMS. If you press the Control Q part, you will see Control Q keyboard combination. The configuration will appear in the right side, so you can change the theme. You can change the font size, I don't know, the language. Maybe if you want to in the JavaScript part, maybe you will want to change to JavaScript, or I don't know. Also, I don't know if you know the setting that you can switch to tab view if you are more you have to write a big part of the code. You need some more space. You can change the layout of the CMS. Regarding the upload part, we added also an upload area where you can upload your files for your website, for your project. We limited to the upload size file is limited because it's on a public domain and everyone can create and upload files. So we don't want to allow to upload large files or store personal data or something personal files on the sandbox. So you can upload basically images, fonts, and whatever is related to the media of the website. The CSS file we don't encourage to be uploaded in here because we truly believe that they can be added in the CSS part of the snippet, and when the page is rendered, the CSS part of the snippet will be automatically embedded in the head. So you have more control, you have the editor, so you can change the CSS directly in the CMS without the need of downloading the file, modifying and re-uploading. That's the purpose. So if you have questions regarding some functionalities, how the snippet, the pages work, or regarding the usability of the CMS, me and my colleague Cătălin here will be more than happy to answer you. If there are no questions, we will proceed further to the live coding part of the flight service.
Hi guys. Okay, so
hello.
Yes, please.
I wanted to thank you first for this workshop and your information.
You're welcome. Can you please tell us your name, just to know whom we are talking with?
I'm Amro from Sadim Tech.
Okay. Hi, Amro.
Hi. I would like to maybe demonstrate the direct access to the API. if you can share this with.
Yeah, I'm just trying to start the Postman now.
Okay.
As I see you asked to use something like Postman, and yeah, we use Postman for our development. So I think I have some. Let me see if I remember my password.
Can the demo developers subscription with DCS first in order to try some requests?
Yeah, the API are public, so I will use the sandbox API are public and can be used without a subscription. So you can start using it right now. For production environment, you'll need the subscription, but for testing and development, you don't need the subscription.
So basically, I'm not sure if you have already a developer space account, but we can encourage you to go on the registration area of our dev space, and you can create there an account in order to, I don't know, start scratching and playing around some project using our CMS and the tools from there.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Also, for example, I can follow up together with my colleagues with the links. There you can see different examples of projects and what type of snippets were used there. And also from the developer space account, in touch with our team on Slack. We do have a dedicated channel on the Slack team in case you have different technical questions. And
Okay.
from that area, you can access the documentation that Ionuț was previously showing. And from there to see how we structure some tips and tricks from our side and different collection of libraries for our platform. But if you want to start playing, you can easily go in the dev space and create your account. In case you want to move in production, as Ionuț was mentioning, you need to have a subscription fee to go live with your project.
So can I use the demos not in production but in testing and some other stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the API without the CMS, so I can maybe try to make my own front end or something.
Yeah, sure. That's what I was saying. We created the CMS for high end users that are not so familiar with the API and how to build the logic and the infrastructure of JavaScript programming. So to use, I don't know, Ember, Angular, React framework to
exactly.
APIs. We created this CMS that we try and we will continue to improve to be easy to use and interact with our REST API. But if you already are familiar with the REST APIs, you can easily use it, as I will show you right now. So this is the public URL, developers from the developer space. So we can gather we can make the calls and see the responses of the, I don't know, we have also event manager module, events, and all the REST APIs, the calls for the site, the hotel, the searches are already in place. I think we can provide. I don't know if my colleagues managed to upload the Postman collections for the flight and hotel search inside the documentation, but I will be more than happy to provide full collection of our REST APIs that we are using for testing and development.
Okay, so are the options for the GET and the POST request available somewhere on the website? For example, the header options of the Postman, the details of making the request, they don't require a password or a username or some authentication.
In the REST API documentation, we already provide the token generation part, so you can use it as it's a front-end call to a specific endpoint that will generate you the token, and with this token you can make any call on the API. In the REST API documentation, we try to provide only the travel part of the services, like user order, flight and hotel and packages services. But we will expand the documentation with all our REST API endpoints. I think we already started to add the currency. We'll also add the translation part, the product part, which represent the store part of the trip, the event manager part, and the cache to provide the endpoint to our internal cache, so we can use the cache and extract data from there,
okay,
for widgets and so on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And if you don't understand something, and maybe because the documentation is written and it's a little bit outdated, you can always contact us on the Slack channel.
Slack channel.
There
are
right, or
okay.
On the front page, or you can register to our channels in the. Oops. So the link doesn't work.
Okay, to the channel itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? You can raise your hand, or you can write in the chat area if you have questions. And I will try to add you and to be able to ask your rights to speak. Okay, then we can proceed on the live coding part. As we have mentioned, we will have two sections. We will have the first part that will be keen on the search process of a flight, and then we will have also the part in order to take your questions, or in the meantime, if you have different things that you want to ask regarding the searching of a flight, please share on the chat. Afterwards, we will have also a time dedicated for having the Q&A part. Then we will proceed further on with the listing of the flights.
Yeah, what we are trying to do right now, and we will apologize in advance if we make mistakes, because it's a live coding, so we didn't have scripts or something prepared already. So we'll take the approach of a new project. Once we have the HTML part, this is the HTML that I share my screen with the HTML. So It's basically a form with some what is not working, is not doing anything at this moment. We will map this form integrating with our CMS to show you how to create, starting from a HTML template to create online website ready. We will proceed today with the flight search form and the flight listing with all the filters, sorting, and so on. So we want to cover all the functionalities that the search and the listing will have. And if you have any questions during the programming, please be free to ask and intervene. We like to believe that we are all programmers and all make mistakes. So if we are not explaining something correctly because maybe we are too subjective, then please raise your hand and my colleague Sibel will allow you to speak. So as I said, we have a template, an HTML template that is looking something like this. It's only HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript at the bottom. As I said, it's not functional. So, and now I will try to take this template and put in the CMS. So the first part, I will create a new project. Let's say webinar. I will create a blank project because it's not a full project at this moment. Okay, once I've created the project, I'll be redirected to the CMS part. Now, what I will have to do is to before starting coding, we need to think a little bit, to have a look at the template and try to make a strategy how to approach the design, because the design can vary from website to website. In this design, as you can see, we only have a search form, a header, and a footer. So my approach in this case will be to just copy all the file and create a new page in the CMS. I will call it index and just paste it here. Now I will publish the page and we'll see that the page is looking pretty crappy in this moment because as you can see, we have some files that are relative. So in this case, I will upload the files. So this is the project. I will upload not the CSS, the image part. So in the upload area, I will create a folder called images. And if I'm not mistaken, it's a one called icons. Yeah, I will create also the icons folder. So in the images, I will just select those images and drag and drop. And I will do the same for the icons folder. Okay, now we have in place all the images and icons. And if we go access the page using the top link, we'll see that some files are missing. What we'll do now, let's create the CSS and the CSS snippet. So first of all, we have in this page icons and style CSS files. So I'll create a new snippet called CSS icons. I'll create a category, let's say CSS in this part, and I will go to the CSS icon. CSS, I will just copy and paste this in the CSS panel of the snippet. And then I will save the snippet, and I will do the same with those styles. I think it's called style. Okay. I'll use the same category as for the icon style. And I will do the same copy paste in the CSS panel. I'll compile also the snippet, and now I will go back to the page on my index page, and where I have the icons, I will comment that part, and I will insert the icon snippet, and I'll do the same also for the style. Okay, I'll recompile the page, and now we'll see that it's beginning to look more colorful. The other problem is that we, as you can see in our template, we have some background image, also the logos of the DCS. So why those are not showing in my, let's switch to the tab panel. And this is the web page that we are working on it right now. So the difference is that we have the background color, the logo, all the images are missing. What we can do now, what usually I will do it to go to the console, the network, and make a refresh to see what kind of images are missing. So all are related to the images folders, but the path is wrong in our case. So in this case, I will go to the documentation, the snippet, and I will go to the predefined variables to see what is the link for the upload path, this path. So I can see I can take it from here, but if I will just copy paste, I will hard code it, and I don't like to hard code things, so I will use the configuration part of the application. So the upload path will be under config paths upload, and to access it will be like this for the upload. If you need the domain part, you'll replace the domain. If you need the endpoint, the translate endpoint of the pages endpoint, it will be globals config endpoints API gateway. So I'll just copy this one from the documentation. I'll go back to the CMS, and here is the logo. I will just copy paste this. The pages are also twig friendly, so you can write the twig language also in the page as using the snippet template. So now I have the upload part for the logo, and if I'm not mistaken, this one should go to the very end on the footer. Okay, let's publish to see the magic worked. Okay, so now we have the logo and the footer. Other icons are, the background image is not showing, and the icons are not showing, as we can see in our request. So let me, this one. So in the CMS part, I will search for images. So there are only 2 images that are already taken. Maybe there are in the CSS part. So I will go in the CSS. Let's quickly change the language to the CSS. And let's search also here for images. Okay, so in the CSS file we have relative path to the background images. I will do a replace with the left images. I will replace all. I will recompile the snippet. Once the snippet is recompiled, the old pages that are using the snippet will be re-rendered. So now I don't have to go and republish the page. I'll just go to my page and refresh it. And now we have the background image. But there are also some icons that are not showing. So maybe there are in the icons. CSS part. Let's change it to the. Okay, we have the same problem. This one. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now we have also the icons. Let's close this. And okay, the selector is not in place. Maybe I think the icons. Maybe it's not in here. Let's search in the sky. Okay, so I'll just replace this with this. Okay, so I think it looks pretty the same with the original one, which is pretty cool now. So I've managed to put the template in the CMS. Now let's make it work. So we have the header, we have an interstitial part that at this moment is hide. We'll use it that later when we make the transition from the search form to the listing. And we have the form tabs, and we have the form for the flight. So first thing that I will do, I will try to, because I think the header it will be common for all the pages, I will simply copy this one and cut, publish, and I will create a new snippet called page header. Okay, I'll compile it. I'll go back to the header and insert the page header snippet. Publish the page. You see nothing changed. Okay, we are still looking good. Then institution loading just collapse. And the flight search form, I would want to make a different snippet. And I will just copy, publish, with the snippet, flight search form. Let's give it a category name. Let's say search. Copy paste the whole thing. The indentation is lost. I'll have to read them. Okay. I will leave the snippet static right now. Okay, going back to the page where the form was, insert the white search form. Just publish the page and refresh it. We're just on the same design. Let's have a quick look on the how the page got written to the disk, to the physical part of the server. So as I said, we created the two CSS snippets. So the first one we created is the icons CSS, and the content of the snippet, because it has the CSS part. So all the CSS part of any snippet will be rendered in the head, as I said. For this demo, we didn't minimize the CSS structure, but for production, we recommend to use a minimized format, minify format. So this will be the CSS part for the icons, and the part of the style snippet will be below. There is plenty of CSS. Okay, let's use the scroll CSS. Okay. So we scroll until the end of the style sheet that were provided by those two snippets. One thing to mention here is that let's go back to the page. The styles are rendered in the order, in the header, in the order of the snippets. So if the icons snippet is first in page, the styles of of the icon snippet will be put in the header first, then the style of the snippet, CSS style, and if the page header will have a style, also it will be rendered the third in the head. So if I want, let's say, for a specific page to make a change in the CSS style to override some property of some element, it's not a good idea to modify directly in the CSS style snippet, but to create another snippet with only the overwritten part of the CSS and put it below, or even if I put the snippet style, this snippet at the end of the page, the CSS part will be rendered in the head. So it should not change the design and the look and feel. Okay, now we have the header, which is the static snippet that we have created, the interstitial page, and our flight search form. That also is a static snippet at this moment. And at the very end of the page is the configuration of the page, the variables that are available for the snippet. So, as you know, we created two snippets: CSS icons, CSS style, and page header, and search form, flight search form. Each snippet will generate automatically a PostScript file, JavaScript file that is stored on the server. So each time you go to a snippet and create in the PostScript tab, write something, it will be available at the link of this page. So because let's say for the flight search form, this link, if I will go to it, it's empty, but if I will go to to, let's search for script and say, let's say add a comment. Like this. Compile, and now if we paste the URL, we'll see the hello world. So if you want to create only the JavaScript file, you can do it like this and be accessible at the name of the snippet, underline PostScript. So we add we suffix the name of the snippet with the PostScript part, which is the name of the tab in the CMS. Okay, so this is how the page structure looks at this moment. We have the globals, as I said, in the documentation. So all the paths are here. Let's go to the CMS part. The index. I will move the style just for the beauty of the page to stay on the top, in the top. Now let's we have this part of JavaScript. I will delete this one because for the JavaScript plugins and modules and other functionalities, we use required. So the CMS is based on the required.js. Which is a module loader. You have the documentation you have the documentation and you can learn how to use it, accessing their website, and it's pretty straightforward. We decided to do like this because allow us to not to optimize the request of the libraries, because maybe a snippet because maybe in one snippet you want to use the jQuery date picker, let's say, and you want to create another snippet that want to use also jQuery date picker. So in this case, you have to make a request to the jQuery date picker plugin twice. Using required.js, you'll only need to do it once, and the required.js will know what plugins to load and when, providing a lazy loading system, and so on. For us, sounds like a good idea and a good approach, and that's why we decided to go with required.js. Okay, so for this part of JavaScript, I will just press the delete button, and if I remember, we have already in our preview project in the snippets the two snippets that are using my dependencies. Okay, so I will need for my design, I will need two type of heads. For the date pickers, for the simplicity, we will use the browser default date picker. So this is input type date and basic selector. So I will need only the autocomplete part. So I think it's type ahead. So for this, okay, maybe later for the pricing slider, we will use Noe slider. I will not remove the other part, that jQuery UI and so on, because they will not be loaded if I don't use it. So I will copy this content of the snippet, and I will go to create the same snippet, save fields. The is you can provide any name and any category name that you want, but for me it's more clear to be like this. I'll compile this snippet. Oops. Oh, okay. One thing to mention: a snippet must have at least a template or a CSS part. But in this case, my snippet is just a JavaScript utils library, so I don't need the template nor the CSS part. So I'll just put a comment in here. I will just name the snippet name and make a comment. Now the snippet is created. Okay, so it's also an application, but that will bootstrap the application. Let me copy also that snippet, and we'll have a look at this configuration of those two snippets after I create it. So let's say make the comment, copy paste it, compile the snippet. Okay, let's talk about a little bit what those snippets do. I will let my colleague Cătălin, because he's the mastermind behind those snippets, and he will explain what he actually written in here.
Now we will have our colleague Cătălin, who will show you in the next couple of minutes his site. Please let me know if everybody can hear us.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Cătălin, lead front-end developer on Trip. So I'll continue where Ionuț left off. So utils file. This is basically modules object that keeps dependencies, which will be used inside the app. Below, there are some functions which also extend the required JS native functions, like define and require. Okay, so yeah, a few other functions which we have manually written that are shared within the whole website. They are easily accessible here. Same for the app file. So this contains like a mapping object if you want. So this template object is mapping between the template and the methods that we use. So for search, for example, we'll use this variable, template flight search, and here are some key elements in the design that are used for the form submission and so on. So like original and destination inputs, search button, dates input, and so on. So this becomes quite a huge file once we add listing and book and so on. But it's a good idea to keep things organized. So this way you have it all in a specific place. So we use this for different templates now. So if we will have another design, a whole new design, a whole new website, we can just come here and edit the mapping to match the new design. So maybe the new design will have a different class for, I don't know, origin input or the search button. So the search button will not be ID flight search button, but flight search. So we'll have to change this here or make the template contain these classes or IDs, like flight search button on the template.
Yeah, it's basically a CSS selector structure. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's basically a CSS selector structure. So for the flight search form, we have the form name, flight search for the class for the type of head will be flight 0 origin, flight 0 destination. The ID of the submit button will be flight search button. You can go to the search form template to see the naming and the IDs, what we are talking about right now. So the idea of the origin part, as you can see, is and the class is flight 0 origin. For the destination will be flight 0 destination. For the submit button will have the flight underscore search button, I think, which is mapped in that app JavaScript file. Those two files are created by Catalin to help us to share the functionalities between projects. So if we'll have a design, as Catalin said, if you have a design with different naming, we have two options: to change the naming in the design, or to come here in the app file and change the names here. This is not this is our approach. It's how we thought it would be more easy to structure the information and the JavaScript utils. Because as Catalin said, in the utils JavaScript file, we have defined a couple of functions that are used inside the project, like parse URL parameters and so on. You'll see it later how we make use of this function. So yeah, basically this is the, you know, when you try to create a plugin, let's say a carousel, you will use some bindings on that HTML elements and so on. And maybe you will put it in the page, but we like to abstract the some common function and use this library that we have created. You feel free to use it. Feel free to create your own based on your project, your necessities, and yeah, that's it. Basically, in the utils files, we required some libraries that we need in this project. As I said, we will use Bootstrap for the CSS framework. We'll use NoE slider for the sliding, for the price range slider, and we'll use type ahead for the autocomplete part. Now, regarding the search form, you can find in the REST API documentation the the action when you start a search for the flight, for the hotel, for any type of the travel service, you'll have to use the dynamic package endpoint from our backend. This has a couple of advantages that we try to implement. One problem that we faced during the years of development is that when you try to dynamic packaging some services, you'll need to start more than one search. Let's say if you want to create a dynamic packaging between a flight and the hotel service, there are a couple of methods to display to the user. One method is to start first the flight service search, and once the search is made and the user has chosen a flight from the listing, then you provide the hotel listing as a result of the hotel search, and the user will add, let's say, on a shopping basket the hotel also, and will create a dynamic package to book. But there are another scenarios that may appear during the road. Let's say you want to show the user on already selected flight, maybe the cheapest one, or maybe the first direct flight from one destination to another, and let the user choose the hotel from the listing. So the flight is already selected by the application, and the user will have to choose the hotel. In this case, you'll have to synchronize the searches, the flight search and the hotel search. So when the flight search is finished and the hotel search is finished, to display the listing with the combination of the cheapest flight with all the hotels. One problem that we have encountered in this approach is that we don't know when a search is finished. We don't know which search finished first. Let's say we don't know if the flight search is finished or the hotel search is finished. And this was kind of struggle for us and for other developers that we have worked to figure it out. So this is why we have created this endpoint, the dynamic package endpoint, that allows you to specify the container, to group the search in a container, and you have the possibility to inspect the container based on the ID that you have provided. In our case, is the webinar flight, the container name. The nomenclature is in our REST API documentation. So create container for search in the search process section. So you will have the _s followed by the container ID that you will decide which is the container ID. So if you make the decision, then you'll know what container to interrogate. Then the service in our case will be F from the flight service, the search ID because you can start multiple searches. So if you want to start 2 flights, maybe create a weekend search, let's say. You'll have to, and to display comparison between prices in different weekends, you'll have to start a couple of searches. So if you want to start 2 flight searches, you'll have to provide the index 0, 1, 2. It will be more easy to identify. And the variable are the variables specific for each type of service. For the flight service, the variables are I think it is. Oh, okay. So for the flight service, the variables are explained in this section also. So type is representing the flight type, one-way round trip, multi-destination. Flex if you want to search with flexible dates, if the supplier permits and you have bought this option from your supplier, from your GDS. Then the occupation field that represent the type of the passengers, adult, child, senior, youth, infant, and infant in seat. Another type of variable are some filters that you may search only for direct flights or for a specific cabin type, like economy, business class, first class, and so on. The destination and period fields are representing, you'll see we have here the air, which representing the route. For one way, we'll have air 0 for and for origin, and for the return, we'll have air 1 for if we use flight type multi-destination, we have flight 2, flight air 1, air 2, air 3, air 4, depending how much destinations we will add to our search. The same is for the hotel service and for the package service. You'll find all the variables and the descriptions together with the description in the documentation. So going back to our search word, we need to make a post action, a post to this endpoint, which is described in the REST API documentation. Other properties for the form are strictly related to this design and to our approach. Here we have data redirect that will specify the name of the page that will be redirected when the search is finished. So we have flight type where we define, in our case, as I said, the container ID is webinar flight, the service is flight, the search index is 0 because we'll start only one search, and here is the variable type. Same for the one ways and for the multi-city, multi-destination. The values that can take are 1, 0. So starting with one way will be 0, round trip 1, and multi-city 2. Then going further with the destination, we'll have to provide optional one of the following: the city ID, the ID of the destination of the origin city, or the code of the origin city or a location ID of the origin airport, the location representing the airport. The same is for the return because we have the route index 1, which is the second route, in this case representing the return route. We'll have to provide the destination, one of the city ID, city code, or location ID. Sorry. Then going to the dates, when the departure date will be on route 0 variable dates, and for the return date will be route 1 date on the same containers, same search index. Yeah, then regarding to the travelers, we have the adult and the child for this design. We don't implement the senior and other type of passengers. And for the flight class, as I said, we can specify economy, business, premium economy, first class, and any other class type that you want based on the IATA and the GDS specification code. Also, we have the filter for direct flight that in this case it's Boolean. So if you want only direct flights, you have to provide 0, 1, provide the value 1. If you don't want to show only direct flights, you should provide the value 0. It's equal to false. So this is our form, search form. At this moment, it looks like this. Let's close the developer. Then for our template, it looks the same. At this moment, we don't have the autocomplete part. We have to provide some JavaScript to initialize the type of head for this part. So let's switch to split view. So in this script, we'll have to initialize the type of head. The type of head I think is defined in the application JavaScript part. We created here the init type of head method. So you will have to provide the class of your input. In our case, will be, if I remember, flight 0 origin and flight 0 destination. So going back to the search form, let me go to the JavaScript flight search. Let's open this one, and we'll use require to require the app JavaScript util part. And here we'll use the init type of head method with the name of the flight search origin input and flight search destination input, which are defined in the template mapping, as Catalin said. So let's copy this one and put it in the JavaScript panel. So let's compile it. Going a little bit to the, let's say, where is it defined? If defined in the utils, I will make a search for this one. Okay, so it's nested. Oh, sorry, it's not. It is this up. So it is template flight. So template flight search and origin and destination. So our input to be initialized as the type of head must have the flight 0 origin class and flight 0 destination class. So in the search form, as you already seen, the class is present for the origin and also for the destination. For the destination, yeah, this one. Yeah, the type of head. Once you use the type of head, we provide the endpoint. So the endpoint of the type of head will be an endpoint from our static data. And let's see if it works now. Oh, okay, it doesn't work because compiled. Let me try. Okay. Oh, okay. The problem is that I didn't include the script of the app of the utils part. So I will delete this one and I will insert the utils snippet. I'll publish the page so that initialize the init type ahead method. At this moment should work. Disappear. Okay, let's see what the console says. Script error. Okay, it doesn't find the application. I will add also the snippet of the application. Okay. The problem is that those I figured out. The problem is that those snippets should be dynamic, not static. So I will have because using the static snippet, as you can see when I Google this one, have a look at this part of the screen, especially what's behind what's inside the bracket. So when I make it static snippet, the snippet is executed, the JavaScript of the snippet, it's, it's executed on document ready, so on page load. And for the flight search one, because we are using dynamic variables in this snippet, the JavaScript must be executed after all the dependencies are loaded. So I'll make it a dynamic snippet. So let me check also the application. So the application should be static snippet. The utils should be static snippet. And on the page, I include it. Now we have. Oh, okay. I think I remove the application from here. Yeah. Okay. I've removed the application snippet because it was already required by the utils snippet in here. So utils define the application snippet, which is the relative to this snippet, and it calls app underscore postscript, which is the name of the JavaScript file for the application. So if you add multiple times in the page the modules, then the require will raise you an error. So in the index, I will replace the JavaScript library with our utils, which contains the definition of the type ahead, our application script that define the initializing of the type ahead and the mapping. jQuery Weave, jQuery Weave, Bootstrap, Wiki.js, Moment, and Hold for the carousel. We don't use all of this in this project, but it's we can delete those, let's say, and it will work. Let's say now it's we have no error. So yeah, the autocomplete is working right now. The endpoint that is used for autocomplete, it's this one, and it's also present in the documentation. Let's say obtain location ID. So for the hotel endpoint will be hotel minus location, and for the flight will be flight minus location. The same that we are using in this for this type of head. Okay, let's keep to see this working. Okay, let's cool. At this moment, because we don't have the flight list page, the endpoint, the representing the form action, it's our dynamic packaging calling that the container webinar flight, the index of the search is 0, the status is 2, representing its work in progress. So the search is still in progress. So so far so good. We have created the search form. I think it's not too much complicated. Only thing that you need to take care of is the name of the inputs to be the same as specified in the documentation. The user interaction, maybe you'll select or type of head, whatever for the destination. For the date, you can use a date picker, date picker plugin that you want. Travelers, you can those are adults, those are children. You can make it more evident. You can add also seniors, yachts, and so on. Economy class, you can add any economy class that your GDS provides based on the code, and so on. So the design is just a simple design to make more easy to implement.
One moment, we have one question. Amro, you want to ask something?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. The API documentation seems to be very specific to the CMS, like it's requesting the containers for the specific input in the front end. Is it possible to put it on something, of your own making? Like I'm trying to make the request myself, but there are these notations that seem to be related to the content management system.
No, you can create any container that you want. Only the variables should stay the same. So let's make a call from the postman.
Yeah. Yes.
One.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take the endpoint. Let's put it in the postman. Let's make a post request. The body, let's use this one. And with the documentation, okay, this one, we'll have this. So first of all, I will define a container ID. I will say Amro. And the type will be, let's say, round trip. I will not use flexible data. I will just use the minimal required information to leave the search. So the container should be the same. I will say one adult. For the root, I think I will have the city ID. Let's make a call for the location ID. Okay. I will use the same. Okay. And let's say for Paris. Okay, so the city ID for the Paris is 1. I'll make 1. I'll add also destination city ID. Let's make for London. So for London, we have city ID 10. I'll put 10 in here. Let's go back to the documentation. We'll have, okay, so I provided the destination. I'll have to provide the date. So I'll make it so the departure date will be, let's say, November 10th. The third date is 21. And okay. I think invalid route destination. Let me see what route. Okay. So for I should this one because I need to provide. I will go from one city to another, and I will receive a return from one from the city to another. We'll have to replicate those ones. So for the return route, I will use London. Going back to Paris, which is 1. Okay, so now I've got the search started, which is work in progress at this moment. We'll continue further with our 4 and to see how we can get the results of this search. Is this clear for you? Or?
Yeah, it's more clear now, thank you. But does the message mean that something is loading in the background? Or?
Actually, we start because there are multiple users using the same endpoint. We start each search as a separate process, and with a worker behind. And this worker will report to a supervisor when the search is finished. So if you keep doing the request, and then I think there is a inspect method on the container ID. Let's move it to the get. And I think it's seed number. I don't know exactly. Okay, so you use the inspect method on your container, and you'll see at this point your search it's already finished because it is done, and you already have a code based on which you can get the results.
Okay.
If I will do, let's change a little bit the date. So we have. I have to remove the inspect for the stats. Okay. So now this is in progress. If I will inspect the container, I will have the first search because I use the same container. The first search is the second search that I will need in progress. If I refresh it, the second search is already done.
Okay.
It's a different code.
So you have both the searches in the history. You can look up like an index of 1 or index of 0. You can get the previous search or the next search.
That's why if you use the same container and you don't use a dynamic generated container, you'll have on the container all the searches that you have made.
Okay, is the search, is the work in progress part is the same for the commercial subscription, or is it just for the developer gateway? Is the search happening in the subscription-based version of the API?
Yeah, it's the same. I don't think I understood the question, but yeah, the search process is going like this. You first start initiate the process, the search process, and then you receive the ID of the search, which can be used to identify the search in your container. The work in progress representing the search is still not finished because we interrogate the supplier. The supplier may take a while to answer to our, and you have to create a check to see when the search is finished. So it is not I'll make the search, I'll get the results, because it takes some time for the supplier, depending on the GDS, on how fast they will answer. To usually takes around 10 seconds for the flight and around 30 seconds for the hotel.
Okay, so you were speaking, thank you for the explanation. You were speaking about the user per website, not the user per the API. Is that clear for you? Like, is everyone using the API on a queue, or is it just for the website, if I'm having my own website on the TBS, it's the only one doing the queue?
No, when you get a subscription, you get a private API endpoint. The endpoints will be the same starting from here, but this will change per client subscription. So only you will have access, because as you can see, we use a proxy here, API PHP, that makes the authentication for us in this developer box. But if you read the REST documentation, you'll see you'll have to generate your own token and make the authentication there based on the application key and the secret key that we'll provide together with the subscription.
Just something from the commercial point of view. Now what we are actually seeing right now is the concept on the developer space, where you can start working on your own project, but also, because you have referred to the commercial aspect, also at the moment that a certain travel agency or a certain company goes further with the paid version of the trip, then there is a certain process on the installing the trip on your own servers, having the access to the own GDSs and so on. But overall, the process, it's actually applicable for each project, because you may have certain suppliers and you will have a certain project that will be totally different than the project of another travel agency.
Okay, thank you. That clear things.
Yeah, so basically this is the search part. As I said, all you have to take care is the variables that you pass to the endpoint, and the user interface is really up to you. For each designing part may differ. We choose the simple way because this is not about how the complex can be designed, how the search can be started. As we already have the search made, we need to gather the results and display the listing. For this, we will have to create another page. For us, it will be called flight list. Okay, and let's see how the design looks for the listing. Okay, so this is our design, our web design team provided for this webinar. So it's a pretty basic flight list with some filters, a slider for the price range, which is not working on their template. The filter based on the stops, the number of stops for each flight, and a filter for the airlines. Of course, any property of a flight object, as we will see in the next step, can be filtered. We provide 3 versions of the flight APIs. Each version has its own advantages and disadvantages. We'll use for this webinar the latest version, the V3. Regarding the versioning of our APIs, we choose to version the APIs to not break the compatibility for already existing customers. So if you implement something on a version of our API, we guarantee that we will not break your website if we add a new feature or change something in the API. If we need to do something radically, as for flight, the difference between V2 and V3 is that on V3 we return all the data sets to the front end, so the front end can make filtering, sorting, and so on without calling the backend, the rest of the API. And in the V2 we return a specific number of results. I think it's 10 by default, but it's configurable in the application. And the filtering, sorting will be made through endpoint. So yeah, this was from our point of view break compatibility. So we decided to increase the version. If we add another feature that will break, let's say, the schema of the JSON that we provide, then we'll increase again the version. That's why for the flight and also for hotels, we already at the version 3. As I said, each version comes with bad and the goods, depending on the approach of each design. At the hotel, for the version 2, we provide 10 hotels per request with all the properties filled in, like gallery, full description, and so on, which may impact the payload through the network. And for the V3, we provide all hotels at once, but with minimal information like hotel name, main image, stars, and address, I think, and coordinate. Because some designs require all the information at once, some requires minimal information in the listing and go to a details page to see more information, which is another API call. Yeah, so for this part of the webinar, we will use the flight version 3 that will respond with all the flights that we gather in the background, and we can make the filtering and sorting directly in the CMS in the front end part. Okay, so the design, we have the price range filter, number of stop, airlines, sorting by price, ascending or descending. Also, if I think the design included only the direct flights, but you can have also 1 stops or 2 stops flight, and here in details you can have multiple information based on the stopover, like the stopover airport, the stopover time, and so on. Also the price and the booking button. So let's take this template. I think this is it. And put it in our CMS. The same problem with the icons and style. We already created those snippets. I will just include it. Okay, so let's make it and open the new page. So as you can see, we already have this part. We need to replace the logo part in the CMS. We'll add the same. No, no. And scrolling to the bottom. Okay. Refreshing. Now we've got the logo and the logo. My colleague is telling me that I should replace the header also. And I didn't need to replace also this because we have created the snippet before the header. So I will delete this one and set the header. Okay. So it's already in place. Yeah. So we have no slider CSS. Let's create this this snippet also because we need for the price range filter. Copy paste it, the usual stuff, compile it, go to the page, and insert right here. Okay, let's see what we got until now. Cool. So now looking at this page, we can identify two sections. One will be the filter section, the left one, and one will be the listing section, the right part of the page. What I will do, I will split those two sections in two separate snippets. So if I will need to change the filter to not to go and scroll to the to this page to find I need to add another filter or something like this. So the filter, I think is this one, and create a snippet with it. Publish. So the filters are disappeared. Apply. So filters. Do category like this. Put in the template. Hit the indent. Okay, save it. And going back to the page. And, here at the list like filters. Publish. Our filters are back. Let's do the same with this one, the list together. Let's call it list. Under the list category, copy paste it. Compile. Go to the pages and add the like. Okay, now nothing should change. Cool. The same with the JavaScript that our web design team provided. We include our utils. Okay. So far so good. Let's let's gather the search results now. One thing that that you must know is that the filters. Let's go to the list snippet. Tabs. Now, how do we get the flight results based on our search? One thing is to create a JavaScript that make the call to the REST API endpoint as already shown the Postman. So make a JavaScript and Ajax call to this endpoint. When you got the code, call the I think it's flight. The endpoint I think is 53 lines, and we'll interrogate and we'll press in the code that we get from this search. And hopefully we got some flights. Yes. So we have the JSON structure with the type, minimum price of the data set, maximum price, the airline that are present in the data set, airport with the code, city, and name for the that are present in the data set. So they are useful for filtering. Let's say if you want to create a filter based on the airlines, as we have in our design, you can use this part of the schema, of the JSON schema. Yeah, the JSON, let's collapse a little bit. The airports, number of stops, departure time, return times, the code, the search data, which represents the search information that resulted for this data set. So it's type 1, without flexible date, starting from city 1, which is Paris, to city 10, which is London, on the date 10 of November, returning from London to Paris on the 14th of November. One adult, including also flight with stops and some links. And here is the result per se. This is one flight. This is another flight. And so on. So flight will have a combination. The combination is representing the. Let's go back to the design to explain a little bit. If you have multiple routes for departure and multiple routes for return, you can combine them. You can use I want the first route for departure combined with the third route of return. Usually in the same price, but usually the hours will differ, and I think the airline will be the same for. But I'm not sure. We have to check. We'll implement the list in a few minutes, and we'll see there. The price of the flight, the currency, and the schema for the routes. I think for this one, yeah, we have the route 1 with only one route, route 2 with only one route. I'm for sure in this data set, which is kind of big, we have multiple routes also in the design. Okay, so we have this endpoint that we need to call in our flight list snippet. But as I said, we have two options here. One, to create a PostScript JavaScript file that will create an Ajax call that will interrogate the inspect endpoint based on the container ID to see when the search is done, and then gather the code, make the API call, and then render the template using your own template rendering. But with the CMS, we try to avoid all this hassle. So we created in this direction the data source for the snippets. So let's say if we provide this as a data source for our flight list, let's and generate. You'll see in the fourth panel, the JSON response, we got the structure and the actual response that is useful for mapping in the quick template. So if you need to add the price for a flight, you know how to get the price for a flight. As I said, is in here. But this is a hard-coded code. We don't want to take the code into each time the snippet is. We don't have to provide the code hard-coded, so we need to find a way how to put the code in here. You see the variables. The variable in here is code. So what I will do, I will copy the endpoint without the code variable. I will use generate. I will make the snippet dynamic because we are already starting to use dynamic variables, and I will just compile the snippet. But how the code will be passed to this data source? There are in the documentation, in the snippets part, we have the data source. So data source can get parameters from multiple sources. One of them is in place parameter. As you can see, for user, we force the user ID to be 6. But if we provide the ID in the query of the page, the snippet will know to use this value instead of this value. This is more like a placeholder, but not a placeholder as a default value. So if we provide, let's open this page for example. So this is user with the ID 6. But if we provide the ID 8, we got a different user. And if we don't provide any ID, I think the default will be 6. Yeah. If you have any questions regarding this this data source parameter, just ask. I will continue. So for our endpoint, what we need to do to take the endpoint into consideration, the code, we'll leave the data source, the base data source, and the parameter will be passed in the snippet definition. So I'll add in here the code and the default value for the code. I will add just a string of code. And I will do the same for filters because we'll need to gather the filters from the data source. One thing to mention here for the filters, I will use the same endpoint as for the flight list, with the mention that the call will be made only once, because the CMS parse all the pages, parse all the snippets, and make if finds there are the same data sources used for multiple snippets, they will make only one request to that endpoint and use the result for all the snippets that are using that endpoint. So in our case, at this moment, if we go to the page and open the network, we'll see the flights with no code is called only once, although we have added in two different snippets. If in the filters, let's say I will change for the sake of demonstration a little bit, let's say flights test, and save it. When I refresh the page, we will see there are two different codes, one flight test and one flight, because there are different, and yeah, each the CMS needs to make the call for each data set. If one endpoint is failing at this moment, this is not a valid endpoint, so it's not the snippet, the template of the snippet is not rendering. So we have to be careful what endpoint we provide. Okay, so now we are back on track. Now, if I put in here, let's say we'll code equal some random number, and I will enter, we'll see that the call is made with the code this number, which is overriding the no code value that we have provided in the blueprint of our snippet. So at this moment, how do we get the code in the URL? We need to pass a seed to, let's say, this is the search ID for those are the search IDs for your searches. We call it seed for search ID. We can gather the specific information of a search calling the seed part. Let's say, and this will return the information, but data has been used for this specific search. So it was a round trip with one adult, and yeah, Paris to London from 10 to 14 November. I will add this to the URL of let's create another snippet, because we need to have an interstitial to show a loading page. I think in the design, in the index, we have the interstitial part, which is 5. Yeah. Let's copy this one and put it in a separate snippet. In the part, let's say search. Put this one, and I will add this data source. To the snippet. As you can see here, the variable is not passed as a query string. So we need to specify that to differentiate the variable from the query string and the variable from the URL URL segment. So for this type of variable, as stated in the documentation, we can specify Okay, let's go to the end, and here add to point seed, or however the variable will be called in the however you want to call the variable. It's just a placeholder here. Let's generate it and compile. Now let's add this progress bar to the flight list. On the okay, and here I will need to pass the seed. And make it a JSON. One thing to remove the line from the now the okay, it's not working because we added the non seed which is failing. Let's remove for the moment this part just to show the loader. The JavaScript for the progress bar. And then we progress bar. I'm wondering why it's not showing. Maybe I just need to remove the data source for the moment. Yeah, okay. So the data source was the problem. We need to create a valid data source, as I said. Otherwise, the snippet will run. So this is how our snippet with the progress bar will look like. And further, I will let my colleague Cătălin to demonstrate how to implement the flight list. Hello again. Okay, so we have this loader which will basically take care of interrogating the search we just made and obtaining the code, the search code that will gather our final results. So this is initialized here in the JavaScript. So it's basically a function that is recursively called, and it makes the calls to the APIs. So we need to, first of all, need to make the snippet do the right calls. So we'll go back to adding the data source URL. So let's see. So this is the URL. And let it here with our dynamic parameter. Generate, compile, save it. Okay. Okay, so now we need to add it also to the inclusion of the snippet. So here,
add our see as a default. So this will be overwritten from the URL once we have it in our page. Okay. If we go back to this second. Okay. So if we go back to our index page and make a search again. So let's say London to Paris. Choose from date. Okay. Small design issues. Okay, so as you see, our search redirected us to the flight list page with some URL parameters. So we now have the search ID, which is what Yanot showed us earlier. And also the code once the search is finished. So because the search was done, it already redirected us to same page using the code also. Okay, so here our loader took care of the searching process and obtained the code for us. So now any other snippet that uses the code as the parameter, it will gather its data. So you can see the flight request is done now with the correct code and also returns our result. We have here the whole collection. Okay, so now we need to map the data. So this is just some hard-coded text from the design. But let's see. So this request you can see in our website is this one, right? So with the search ID, the dynamic search ID that we obtained through searching. And so we have here the data that should map us all this info here. So basically, this whole response object is available to us in our template. So going back to our code here, we can access this by interpolating with the tweak syntax. So let's see where we can map these dates from. Okay, so to get our dates here, we need to go through our routes. We'll go through R and iterating through this array and getting the dates property from each route. So basically, we can go back to our code, and here we can say, so this is the departure date, and we can use, so this is how we access the data source response object. So this is the main root of the object response. So with underscore ds is basically this object. And so to access our departure date, we'll use R0 date. And so this should give us the first date. And the next one, just for this purpose, you can also use the one index for the route, because it's a round trip search, but we can also do like a check here, like length is equal to 1, something like this, to make sure we have the data. But just for the purpose of demonstrating this, leave as is. And also, okay, let's compile this. Look at it again. Now we have the real date that we have searched for. Of course, we can use twig filters to format this to whatever we want. So we can use the default date filter, which uses PHP notations for date formatting. And we'll use here like G, Y, something like this, so with spaces or maybe dots or whatever. We add this to the other date too. Compile it, refresh, and you can see we have a different form. Okay, so for the destination, the origin and destination cities, we can gather these from our routes also. So flight origin and flight destination. Basically, we can go here and use the same flight origin below. Copy paste. Right, destination. Okay. We can also add these, so the arrows, which we have here. So this should be yes or not R, but ABT. And flight class will yeah, so your class is 1. So here for the flight classes, we should have like mapping for the values. So instead of showing y, we can define here a variable of classes, let's say. So I'll build like an object with containing the pair values of the values that we used inside the search form before. So we'll have y for economy and f, I think it's for those class.
Yeah, those codes you are getting from the YATA for the ADS. For the sake of purpose, we define only two.
And, okay, so we can now use this to show here classes and our value, which is taken from DS, and I think it was it's class. It's class. Let's compile this. Refresh and oh, it means
You forgot to close the bracket.
Okay, things happen. Like this is the coding. Okay, so we now have everything mapped from our search data. So basically, our search is now done, and we have the search code. So we actually don't need to show the loader on the page anymore. So we can check for this. So to effectively hide our loader, once the code is present in our response object, so here, as you see, we have the code. So this will not be available until the search is done. So we can use this to check here if we have the code available. So if the code is available, we should not render the snippet. So we can use here else and to the end and it. So here we shouldn't render anything. So we can add a demo text. So search is done. Okay, reloading. Not working. Oh, got to underscore here. Okay, so we now see search is done instead of the loading. So this is how we can hide the loader once we have the results. And now we can only focus on our listing. So basically now the loader will only show once we found it on this page from the search, as we are redirected here from the search, and we don't have the code parameter. Once the search is done, the JavaScript here that we provided is it's going to redirect to the same flight list page, but adding the code as well. If there are any questions so far?
No.
Okay, so we can go on with the listing.
You can ask questions. I'm here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Amro.
Yes.
I saw the part where you have to wait for the search result to finish. For
Yes.
example, you need to see the message being done before you to set a condition for when you show the flight result.
Yeah.
How many checkpoints are there in the system? Like if you're making a request and waiting, and then making another request with the when the message is done, is there
Yeah.
too many checks in the system? This
So we do have a search just to demonstrate this. Basically, it takes about 10 seconds to receive results. So to complete the search, so I'll make another search just to see this in action. So okay, so now we see that the loader is showing because we don't have the code parameter, and we can see here the interrogations made to the search ID endpoint with our URL param. And now, once the search is made, we have the code. So basically, there are, I don't know, like 10 requests made, one each second, something like this. So it's this is done by our function here, which is recalled with a timeout of 3 seconds. So
Yeah, this time is depending on the GDS that you have. We are connecting now on a test environment, and the time will be more higher than for production environment.
yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Okay, so we can go on with the mapping of the listing. Okay. So basically, we have already the endpoint of the search. The search results slides. And so inside our listing, we need to reach the embedded flights array to iterate through all these. So these are all our results, 67 of them. So we go to the flight list snippet. Okay. And here we can identify where our so this is the whole column of the listing. So everything from the top here to the bottom, including the pagination and the text below the blog. So we need to identify the flight element that will be rendered in the iteration of our flight selection. So we need to identify this element, this HTML element, which is flight item in this case. And we can go here and we can see This is the text from the upper part. The sort, select relevant. So a bit more obvious here. Okay, and here we have our flight item element. Okay, it goes. So it goes to here. This is also wrapped in form element because it's easier for us to gather information about that selected flight once the user will click this button. And for a better experience here, we can make this another snippet. So I can close this one and cut it from here and create another snippet. So call it like flight item, list, category, and that's it. Okay, leave that as it is. And we can now go back to our list snippet and include it here. Flight item and okay. The design contains some more items which we won't need. Okay, so we are now ready to start making the iteration here through our flights. Basically, we need four, let's say, flight in this. Well, it should be embedding flights, right? So this is where we want to reach our array. So it's embedded flights. Okay. So we close it here. Okay. So now we should have this flight object which represents each flight in our collection. So each of these is now available here inside our iteration, and we need to pass this on to the new snippet that we created in order to use it inside flight item. So to do this, we've provided a new type of parameters that can be used inside our CMS. So to provide these parameters, we should use square brackets. So these define parameters for this snippet here, which in our case is flight item. So we will have the JSON structure here with anything we want to pass. So here, in our case, we'll have to pass flight. I'll say flight to keep the naming. And here we should provide the object from the iteration. And so I'll interpolate flight with trigger filter of JSON encode, which will okay. So this will provide the flight object inside the flight item will be available as it is here in our iteration. So we'll compile this, and now we can go to flight item. And let's see if we have it here. So I'll add dump. To see what we have available. I can also add the flight as I know this is what I should be receiving. Refresh. Right. This should not be started. There's no data. Back. Back to slide list. Launch. Okay. So I need to close the JSON structure here, which I can cut. Okay. Now this should work. Okay. So we have the iteration, we have all the flight language, 67. Unfortunately, we have flight undefined. Now, okay, let's see here. Flight. Okay, so let's see the iteration. Oh, right. So our mistake is we've written, let's see how remove this from here. Okay, refresh. And you can see the dump from our flight item snippet. Okay, so it's removed the dump. So this shows us everything and all the data that this snippet has available. So we can see here all the data available inside that template. And if we look for parent files, you can see why this wasn't working. We need to use parent to access our parent data. So this should be parent flight. Okay, refresh, and we still see our flight. So now everything works as expected. We can use this to map our prices maybe, just to see something different with each flight. So I think we have here the price for each flight. And you can see here flights, I think it's price. Yeah. Yes, flights and the price flight currency. Right, so the currency, which is okay. Refresh it. Okay, so we have 313, 389, and so on. Okay, so now we have our flight here. We can also do here shortcut variable, just so that we can use flight, simply flight below. So a variable flight, which will be equal to flight. Okay. Now we can access this using just flight. Compile it. We should see our prices the same. Okay. So the same goes for every other info that we need to display here. And I think we have this already mapped.
Yeah.
So we go here.
Yeah, login.
Okay. So we have here the template that we already mapped with some data. Of course, going through the whole object is quite a task, which is why we won't go right now.
Yeah. If you have any questions how to access a property or something to map the flight, just ask. But now we don't want to lose time mapping the variables in Twig because yeah we
Yeah, so basically we have four iterations to routes and each segment for gathering the carrier data and the destination, and the dates, and so on. So basically, it's all going through the object and mapping properties. So this is the whole item. Also, we can see here we have another sub snippet that we used for um, the details section, which should be below here. Okay, so we should make this also.
before copying this, let's tackle the filters before because I don't think the mapping is truly important. Let's make for the last step.
Sure. So mapping the filters, we should access the same object, response object. Remember, we have the same data source URL used on the flag filters snippet. So our response object is exactly this one. So for the filters, we need to go through our airlines, which are here. These are all the available airlines inside our result. Also, airports for filtering by airport, departure times, and so on. We have here stops, also, which is just an array of the number of stops. So 0 is for direct, 1 for one stop, and so on. Okay, so what we need to do now is go into the flight filters method. Already there. Okay. And let's start with our price range. So we have here a div element which will initialize our rider, which is not run before now, of course. And also here we can see some span elements which will render our values. The values here will be our mean price and max price from our response data. So to quickly map this, I can just go ahead here and use this mean price and for the max, yes, max price. And this will give us the initial render of the correct values. For the currency, we would need to go inside our results, inside the array, and get it from the first flight. It doesn't matter. So as long as we have results, we will have the currency. So here I can add yes, embedded flights. Yeah. Yeah. This will be the same. Yeah. Okay. Still the same. Okay. And for the slider itself, we need some JavaScript. I think we have it here. In slide filters. Sublime. Okay. So this is our JavaScript, which will take care of the whole filter section. You can see here the method for the price slider, which will get the values from the same source, which is our data source response. And this is actually accessed using the snippets underscore snippet variable, which is global. You can see it here easily. So here we have all the data from the page, which is gathered by data source request. So for our flight filters and flight list, it should be accessible here to DS. So this is the whole response object that we have from our data source. So we can access easily our mean price and max price values for the price slider. So I'll just copy this whole thing and paste it into our post script. This is already inside the defined closure of require.js using the dependencies, our default app, and now UI slider, which is the plugin dependency. Okay, so we should compile this and see now if it's running. Okay, so you can see the slider is initialized and it is working. Of course, it's all hooked up with the template beforehand, but this is basic JavaScript initialization, and we shouldn't go through this now. It's quite simple to initialize this. I don't know if this was mentioned. The JavaScript here always runs after the whole template has been rendered inside the DOM. So there's no worry that you won't have, I don't know, like maybe the slider element, DOM element available. It will be there. So everything here runs after the filters have already been rendered inside the page. Okay, going forward.
Only, I mentioned only if it's rendered post.
Yes, it's post rendering. So for static snippets, as app and utils are, these are static just so that they are run as the page load event. So basically, once the app is initialized, these are loaded to be available further for other snippets. Okay, so coming back to our filters, we can go on to the stocks section. So number of stocks, we need to access our stocks array here and render these checkboxes. So going in our template, you can see the label and input checkboxes. So this is one element, and we have two more here. So we can get rid of these and use only one. Simply I'm going to make another iteration to our stocks array. So stock in DS stocks, I think it is. Yeah. Okay. So this stock variable will be exactly our value. So we can use this to say here how many stocks we will render. So stocks, but also for direct filter, we need to write direct so it won't show 0 stocks. We'll need a small verification here, so we can use ternary to say stock is 0. You say direct. Otherwise, we'll render stop and calculate this with stocks. So we can get rid of this. Okay. And also, we will need the stock value on the input value. We should have here value stock. Okay. Let's see. Page. Okay, so we have 0 and 1. We can now see direct and 1 stocks. Of course, we can also write stock and stocks for 1 stock and multiple stocks. But that's another story. Another time. Okay, so we have this working. The same goes for airlines, which is about the same. Since we have an array of airlines, we can go through these and show the text beside. And I think we have this mapped also. So I will go to the version here. We have it. We have it. So this is our airline iteration. So I will replace this whole section with our iteration airline to airlines. We can insert airlines. Great. So we should now see these going up. We have our results have expired, so they are dynamically refreshed. Here, the inspect the search ID inspect didn't return the code. Remember, we had the code before, the code property. So once the search has expired, the code will no longer be available here. And we have this check done inside our loader JavaScript here. So this checks if we have our code. If not, it means it's expired, and so it triggers the search automatically. So the results are now refreshed. We have a new search code, which is already inside our URL. And we are back to live results. We have also our airlines map. So we can go ahead and check everything. Okay, so for the functional filtering part, we have here an apply button, which is quite huge, but also is important to actually apply our filters. So we can go ahead and check stops and airlines, and also make some price changes, and then go ahead and click apply, and this will then reload the page with our filters inside the URL. So we want to make use of our CMS functionality using data sources and URL params, which will automatically request results. So make this request to flight with filter params. So in order to do this, we will need to add some JavaScript functionality here. So when we actually click apply, something happens. Yes. Now it's just a plain button, so it doesn't do anything. So for this, we need to go back to our flight filter snippet. And here we can see we should have, so this is the part where the price slider is updated. This is where the final value is updated. Okay, and here we have the checking checking and unchecking of the checkboxes. So we use in the background, we use an object which holds the state of live filters. So once the user clicks here, we have an object that is completely mirroring everything the user does. And so that whole object is then used for applying the filters when the button is clicked. So functionalities are here, except the button press. Let's see what's missing. So we apply filters. We put to here. Here, for Okay, so this is our function, and it should be called okay. So this should be called apply. And I think we need to have this start template. Okay. Template. We need to call this function from our app. So I can have here on text. From our templates, like list methods, apply filters. So this also is available globally, so it will be available in our template, and it will call the method that we have defined here inside our template flight list method. So this method, which basically parses the whole filter subject, and it just builds the Redux use URL. Now we should refresh, and this should work. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So I can set some prices, maybe some airline, and apply. And the page has been refreshed. And we can see we have our filters inside our URL, the price, the airlines. They are all common separated, so it's something we built custom for our implementation. Of course, you are free to use this whole functionality as you would like. And so basically now we should have our list filtered, which we don't actually, because we left it with the whole iteration. Yeah, so we will need to add here our filtering syntax. We've already done this project. And so here we can see the whole list being mapped. So we have flights, which is taken from our data source object and being verified in here because we've added also pagination inside the page at the bottom. So we have a specific snippet for that, which takes parameters to compute the pages dynamically. And also for the filters, we have here some trig syntax, also taking from the URL. So you can access all URL parameters using the $_query. And going through these to parsing to set some variables to filter our collection below. So everything here just computes into this in-page variable, which states if the flight should be rendered on the page or not. So basically, if we are on the 5th page, it will only render the flights from 50 to 60 if the page size is 10, and so on. It also includes the filters from the URL. Okay, so we can grab these just for demonstrating the filter functionality. So I'll copy everything to including the iteration. Okay, going back to our template. Paste this in here. And we have flight item. So we have passed flight as before, but also added flight index, which is the index inside the array, and also source data from our data source response object. And we should now see a different listing. It's different, all right. Let's see. So I think we need this to, yeah. The flights and flights. Yeah. This is needed as well. And this is coordination, which is I think it's yeah, it's this one. Yeah. Yes. Doesn't want to have it. No problem. This is slide for now. And all this one. Filters are too restricted, so we need to increase our range for that. It's extensive flag. Okay, so we now have filtered results from 457. Yeah. Okay. And also for the pagination snippet, we need to create this, which is a basic snippet. So this will be pagination list. And the functionality. Okay, so I've added here the pagination snippet, which will render our pagination from the bottom. So this basically inherits through parent params some data from the list, which is computed. And so compile this inside our list. We have it here, okay. So we can now go and refresh. And we can see it's working. We have 10 of 23 filter results. So if we remove our filters, go back to the initial state, apply. We can see we have all our 67 results and more pages. Going back to the last one, we have 7 pages, 7 on this page. So basically, the whole filtering functionality is done inside this snippet, like list, and within the Twig syntax in one go. So it's one iteration in taking the URL parameters. It's all parsed and filtered here. So this is one way of doing it. Of course, this takes advantage of our CMS functionality using data sources and rendering at page load the whole page. Again, another option would be to dynamically do it in the page, so all the filters applying directly and re-rendering this whitelist snippet on the go. But of course, this involves more JavaScript coding, and it's not the purpose of this demo today. Yeah, thank you, Katalin. Yeah, I think
We have one question asking about is the filter a new request with smaller payload, or it is reducing the list received from the first search?
Yes. So doing it like this, as we've shown, this request is made with filtered params. So doing it again. Okay. So this the flights endpoint returns the collection on version 3 of our APIs, returns the whole collection of flights. So we always have our whole collection of flights, the whole 67 of them. So basically, this is the same request, which can easily be cached inside the browser. So being the same at reloading the page, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, so the answer is that the filtering is done in the front end for the version v3. If you need to reduce the payload and if you need to reduce the payload and to make the filtering on the backend side, then you will have to use the v2 version of the flags.
So we could also use version 2 here to make the calls and include our filters inside the call.
Yeah.
To reduce the payload. It's all inside the documentation.
Okay, do you have any other questions? Okay, then I think that we can call it a wrap after 4 hours of live coding. In the meantime, we will try to prepare the recorded video of this session, and you will be receiving it via your emails. In the meantime, we will prepare the session for tomorrow with the booking search process. And also we will be waiting your questions via email on the marketing@dcsplus.net, or you can write your questions on our Slack channel. The questions can be related to today's session on the search and the listing process, but also in the meantime, if you will be having different questions that will be related to the booking part or to the different parts of the post-booking on the website, please feel free. I hope that you have enjoyed our session. I guess that both Ionuț and Cătălin tried to give you a real live coding session. And see you tomorrow. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.